Okay, welcome back grade 9. We are here to start annotating our sources. If you remember from the last video that you just watched, we went onto our Google website and we found a nice source that we can use for our task. What we're going to do now, and this is the part that's confusing a lot of you, we're going to go through, we're going to analyze and annotate the source. Remember to keep your cup notes next to you, okay? The CUP of analyzing sources. Now, this is actually provided for you on the 4th page of your task sheet, and as you can hear, I have it printed out and it's going to help me analyze this source today. So I'm quickly going to read through this source. I'll give you a little bit of time as well. So if you'd like to do it with me, press pause, read your source, and let's do it together. The first bit of information I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the credibility of this source. Now, we know for a fact that this source has been created by a technology website or someone who works for a technology website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the author. I'm going to go to the review tab and I'm going to click on a new comment. Over on the right hand side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in So what I've written in there is that the author works for a third-party technology website. We know that this is going to be about how good the online experience of the PlayStation 4 has become over time. What we need to do is actually have a look at the credibility of this information. We know that the author of this text does not work for Sony PlayStation, so that actually makes the source quite credible. Now remember we talked about our highlighting. I'm going to scroll up and have a look at our key. We're looking at the credibility, so I'm going to highlight this information blue. You just have to right click, hit the highlighter, and highlight it blue. Let's keep reading. Now, where was this source created? This was obviously an online source. Okay, so there's not much in here, the actual text, that tells us where it's created. It does tell us why, however. If we can find a direct quote, we'll be able to add another comment. If you have a look at the first line, it says the first thing Layden and Sony moved to do for PlayStation 4 was improve the online experience. That tells us exactly why this source was created. So let's add a comment. Please ignore the spelling mistakes, grade 9. We can fix those later on. There we go. Okay, again, we're talking about the credibility of the source. So what color are we going to highlight that? That's right, our nice blue color. There we go. Let's move down and have a chat about bias. Now, bias is actually talking about the viewpoint of this article. Now, this article seems to be written without too much bias by the author, but if you have a look within the text itself, you can see a couple of sections here which I'll highlight are actually quotes. Now, those quotes are actually quotes by spokespeople from Sony themselves, the guys who actually make the PlayStation. So there may be a little bit of bias towards the online experience of the PlayStation. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the quotes. And there again we have our comment for that. Once again, we are still talking about the credibility grade 9, so let's highlight that our blue color. Now it doesn't matter how many comments you add. The more you add, the more you'll have to talk about in your reflection section. But for the sake of keeping this video short, what we might do is we might move on to the utility. So let's have a look at our questions. The first question here, if you have a look on your task sheet, let's go back. So what are the key ideas of this? We know the key ideas of this text is to actually tell us that the online experience has improved the PlayStation. Can we find that somewhere in our text though? So if we highlight this section here, it's talked about the online experience and being able to download a game being one of the greatest innovations. So let's add a comment to this here. Okay, there we go. We've added another comment. So the key idea is that the download capability of the PS4 is the greatest innovation. Now, we've moved on from credibility, we've moved on to utility. So let's scroll back up and see what color we need to highlight it. Okay, so we're going to highlight this one in the pink highlighter color. And there we go. Wonderful. Now let's see if we can find something else that talks to the utility of this. Now we have a lot of opinions in here. If you remember the quotes that we talked about earlier when we were looking at the credibility, these quotes offer quite a lot of opinion as well. If we have a look here, they would rather just have it on the hard drive and just go from game to Netflix to PlayStation View and back to another game. While this might be true, it's not actually a fact. The spokesperson from Sony has talked about this and made a general assumption based on his own experience or what he thinks. So this is actually an opinion. We're just going to make it clear that this is not factual information whatsoever. Once again, this is the utility of the source, so we're going to highlight it in our pink highlighter. The last little bit here of the quote, again from the Sony spokesperson, is talking about the transition happening super quick. And now I believe that this is a fact, because if you have a look at how fast and the timeline of the Sony PlayStation, the evolution of these online capabilities and the download resources that are available, you as a person will be able to come to that conclusion as well. So let's call this a fact. Again, this is about the utility of the source, so in our purple color, let's highlight it. Wonderful. Let's move on to perspective. There might be more information here on both credibility and utility, but again, just to keep this video a nice short length, let's move on. So before I go through and highlight it, we've talked about who wrote this. We know that there are people quoting, and they've been quoted directly by the author. So what's the perspective? What do you think the purpose of this source is? That's right. It's talking about improving and how much more improved the online experience of the Sony PlayStation 4 is. So let's highlight that little bit of information. Add a new comment. So the purpose of this source is to inform a reader of the evolved online experience Okay, we're talking about perspective, so what color do we need? We're going to highlight that yellow. Excellent. I hope you're keeping up grade 9. Remember, you'll have to do this for yourself, for your own sources as well. So when was this source created? Now, we saw from our reference information that it was 2017, so that's quite recent. So let's highlight the date if we can. It doesn't seem to want to let us add a comment there. What we might do is we'll add a comment here and we'll say created in 2017, source is very recent. Please excuse the phone, grade 9. I'm in my staff room right now. We're going to highlight this one yellow and we'll move on to the next piece of information. So when we're talking about the author of this, not the author, I apologize, the audience. Who do you think the audience might be? Can we find any information in here that will tell us who the audience is going to be? Let's highlight people. What people? Okay. Gamers. Of course. People looking to purchase a new console. Maybe even people who have previously owned a Sony console. Again, we're looking at perspective here. Let's highlight it yellow. So that's basically it, grade 9. If you go through your cup sheet on your assessment task sheet thoroughly, just like we've done in this video, what you'll be able to see is that you can go through, answer those questions by highlighting the information. Remember to write your comments using the comment feature in Microsoft Word. And from then, you'll be able to use these comments in your reflection. Okay, if you have any questions, please send us an email or come and see us in our staff rooms or in class. Good luck.